Hi, this is Ange, and I'll continue to discuss the chapter 17, Spilling Over Water Pollution. So here are topics: disrupting ecosystems, growing to extremes nutrient pollution, breaking with tradition, wastewater treatment, and constructed wetlands. Before we proceed, let us recall first the chapter 10, water resources, and relate it to what will happen if these resources will become polluted. We all know that water is quite the most important resource the environment provides. All living things need water in order to survive. And good news, since Earth contains a lot of water. They explain where water resources are located and how humans access it as they need water to drink, bath, and grow food. Disrupting ecosystems. Toxins are dangerous to living organisms, but human water pollution affects ecosystem. So, water pollution doesn't just harm people. It also hurts animals and plants that live in the water. When we throw waste or chemicals into rivers, lakes, or ocean, it changes how this ecosystem works. Some pollutants can or are obviously harmful, like poison or toxic waste. But there are other, less obvious effects too. For example, pollution can use dead zones. These are areas in the water where there is no or not enough oxygen for fish or other creatures to survive. Another example is nutrient pollution. When too many nutrients like fertilizer get into the water, this causes algae to grow, and when algae die and rot, they use up the oxygen in the water, again making it hard for the living things to survive. So let's now proceed to measuring dissolved oxygen. So DO refers to the amount of oxygen that is present in water. Just like humans need oxygen in the air to breathe, fish and other aquatic organisms need oxygen dissolved in water to survive. Without enough DO, aquatic life becomes stressed or can even die. High DO levels usually mean the water is clean and support a healthy ecosystem, while the low DO or the levels indicate that the ecosystem is under stress. This often occurs in polluted or stagnant waters, especially where there's too much organic waste or nutrient pollution. And when algae or organic matter decompose, bacteria uses up oxygen, leaving less available for fish and other organisms. So there are two ways the water gains oxygen. So first, by mixing with air above it. Turbulent whitewater rapids have a much higher DOC or the dissolved oxygen content than slow-moving or still water. And second, by housing photosynthesizing organisms. So plants and photosynthetic algae in the water produce oxygen. So for example, this is waterfalls. So the plunging motion of water, like at Casaroro Falls, it traps air bubbles as the water crashes down and churns at the base. So this constant mixing of air and water allows more oxygen to dissolve, making waterfall areas with high dissolved oxygen. And as a result, the water downstream or waterfall is often cooler, fresher, and support a healthy variety of aquatic life. And that is the total opposite for the still water, like ponds, like the Twin Lakes. So especially during calm weather. Okay, so because of this, oxygen levels tend to be lower near the bottom. So when the sunlight and water movement are minimal. In such areas, decomposing organic matter can further up use oxygen, creating zones in low dissolved oxygen that can stress, harm, or aquatic organisms living there, creating zones in aquatic ecosystems. So when sewage enters a river or stream, it causes changes in the water and life downstream. Growing to extremes nutrient pollution. So non-point pollution from fertilizers and sewage adds nitrogen and phosphorus, causing excessive algal growth and ecosystem disruption, known as nutrient pollution. So there are two levels of nutrient that or waters. That is oligotrophic waters and eutrophic waters. So when we say oligotrophic waters, it has a low nutrients, few producers, low productivity, and remain clear with little algae. So while the eutrophic waters, it has a high nutrients, high productivity, and abundant algae. Non-pollution happens when pollutants don't come from a single specific source, like a pipe or factory, but instead come from many places spread across the land. So this type of pollution is often carried and washes them into rivers like lakes and sea. So imagine what a small fish or fish pond near farm. After heavy rain, fertilizers from the field wash into the water. And what will happen? The water turns green and smelly because of algal growth. And soon, fish start floating on the surface, not because of poison, but because the algae use up all the oxygen they needed to breathe. This is why proper water disposal, responsible farming, and sewage treatment so important to prevent nutrient pollution and protect our water resources. So there are types of wastewater treatment. So first is the primary, secondary, and tertiary, and we can also include the alternative. So for primary, it removes solids or sediment, while for the secondary, the bacteria break down, sludge removed, and water disinfected. While the tertiary, it removes nitrogen and phosphorus, costly, not always used. And for the last one, the alternative. It is a constructive materials with plants and microbes treat wastewater normally. Okay, so that's all will be our discussion for today. Thank you so much for listening, and this is Teacher Ange. Bye!